you want to dive right in here?
Check.
Check. Yep, I'm perfect. Okay.
I am perfect. Of course.
All right. I'm Darren McCarthy,
I'm Dan Fury.
and this is The Fundamentals.
There we are.
All right.
We said we'd be back.
So we got a nice little part of our biography series
Yay.
to add into.
What are we talking about today?
Talking about Mr. Christopher Columbus, also known as Cristoforo Colombo. And
Is that right?
yeah. There's a few other different translations. He moved around a little bit, so you kind of get the Italian, you get the Spanish,
Yeah.
you get the Anglicanized, like the English version, Christopher
Columbus. He's a Spaniard, though, yeah?
No, he was Italian by birth, born in Genoa. His father was a wool merchant. He was a tavern keeper, like a local politician. His dad wore many hats. Pretty respected, probably what we would consider like a middle class kind of home life and kind of aspirations for what was possible in the world.
Mm.
When he was around 10, he started like an apprenticeship to become a sailor. Genoa had a fairly thriving merchant marine shipbuilding kind of industry built in.
Mm.
So he's around it all the time anyway.
This is 1451 he's born.
He was born in 1451, on or before October 31st, not quite sure.
Mm.
Some people have posited that he was born in like 19.
Some posit he was a time traveler.
Yeah. He was born in like 1436, but that's pretty much
Why would there be such a
disregarded.
large...
I don't know. There have been, especially in the last couple of years, have been like, oh, we found these documents, or we found these remains that we attribute to Christopher Columbus. Like a couple of years ago,
We're always finding stuff.
People were trying to say that he was actually Polish, and
What?
we're still waiting on the DNA test results to come back to say that he was Polish, and he was supposedly related to, if not like the son of the Polish king. I think his name was Stanislav.
How would that get lost in the last 600 years?
I think that I mean he was famous in his own lifetime.
Yeah.
But I think that he was kind of just we'll get into it a little bit. That he was the first of many.
Yeah.
But he's also not really the first. Definitely not the first person to discover what we would consider the New World.
Mm-hmm.
But he was the one where there was no going back. So I'm sure most people Leif Erikson, he actually found North America 500 years before Christopher Columbus did. They basically did island hopping from Iceland to Greenland and to Newfoundland. There were a few settlements set up like on the northeastern coast of this continent, but Columbus actually never made it to the continental United States. He may have kind of come up against the Florida Keys, but that was as far north as he got. So it's kind of ironic, like especially in this country, we celebrate Columbus Day.
He totally gets the credit.
And he never set foot on. Actually, never really set foot on. Well, I guess he maybe set foot on the beaches in like Central America, but probably no further north than that.
Really?
He was mostly in the Caribbean, like in the islands, all like Cuba, the island that is now Haiti, and the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola. Yeah, he was basically in that part of the world.
So he wasn't in Maine.
Yeah, no, he was not in Maine. No lobster rolls for this guy.
So we should say we thought it would be appropriate to talk about this, given that it was just Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
very recently.
I mean, other podcasts may have done this in time for Thanksgiving.
I'm sure they did.
But
stuff you should know, maybe.
Yeah,
have they done this? I'm sure they
probably. Yeah.
What are those guys' names?
Dork and Nerd. I don't know. Chuck Know-It-All.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't listened to actually too many snippets.
I just recently resubscribed, and I haven't listened to a single one that's come up.
Okay, well, because his early life, not super interesting to me.
To be quite honest, I don't remember the connection entirely between Christopher Columbus and like the Pilgrims.
About 200 years.
Yeah. So word was sent back. This is where you want to go.
But when the Pilgrims come over in the 1600s, I think. So at that point, it was well established that they weren't going off into nothingness really. We knew that North America existed. They were just looking for their own little slice of the world to practice
Yeah.
Puritanism, basically.
Thanksgiving just got me thinking, what do I really know about Christopher Columbus? And what I do know is even true?
Mhm.
I have to imagine he's one of these figures that has a bunch of stuff attributed to him that may not be accurate.
Yeah. Let's see. So he became a mariner in his teenage years. And so before his like big kind of epic voyages that we know about, he traveled around the Mediterranean. He went like basically coast to coast in the Mediterranean. He went as far east as the Aegean Sea, where like Greece's islands are. He made a journey up to England. He made a journey to Iceland. Not much is really known about those voyages. Like they were kind of uneventful as far as his life went. Made some expeditions down to Africa. Yeah, and he was involved in a couple of naval battles. At least one where the boat that he was on, the ship he was on, was sunk. And just like out of luck, he clung to an oar and then paddled himself 6 miles back to shore.
Oh, wow.
Where he survived. In his early like 20s, he moved from Italy to Portugal, got married there, and that marriage was important because his new wife was, I think she was of royal descent, but it seems like the family had run out of money. I'm not quite sure like what happened there, but he didn't exactly like, marry into money, but he kind of married into a network of people that he could lean on.
Prestige.
Yeah. Enough connections that he could kind of make a go at it. He was a Catholic. He believed in a lot of like biblical prophecies. He was probably self-taught for the most part when it comes to reading, writing, functional math, astronomy, navigation, that kind of stuff. Some he learned on the job. Some he was taught, formally, but he wasn't like a scholar. But he could read, and I think he read in a few different languages. So his kind of early thinking on like where he wanted to travel was somewhat based on prophecy, that there were these other like the Garden of Eden was a real place on Earth.
Yeah.
But also at this time, Constantinople, like what was left of the Roman Empire, was being sacked by the Ottoman Turks. So what had been the Silk Road to and from China was now pretty much shut down. I mean, it still existed, but you would be attacked by random armies on the way. So everyone's looking for a sea route, like a water route, to get to the Far East for just trading silk and spices and that kind of stuff. So he's in Portugal at this point in his career. He's in his 20s, maybe early 30s, and is trying to make a name for himself, trying to make a buck. And he believes that based on some faulty math. Also, I should point out, at this point, everyone knew that the Earth was round at this point. It was, widely accepted from the time of Aristotle that the Earth was round. So that's kind of a common misconception too, that, people that it was believed he was just going to sail off the edge of the Earth. Like he did not believe that.
Okay, good.
Some people had even calculated.
Somehow, some people still believe that.
Yeah, true. Some people had even calculated like very precisely the size of the Earth, the circumference.
Oh, really?
And other people had got it wrong, but everyone believed it was round. And obviously no one knew exactly, like they kind of knew that, if you keep going this way, you get back to this point, but they have no idea what you're going to see in between here and there,
Yeah.
It's kind of believed that it was one big ocean between Europe and Africa and then China. One of the things I read was he was using Arabic miles to make this calculation. There's a calculation on a single unit, like a degree was like 56 miles, but it was 56 Arabic miles.
Okay.
And it's different than like what the English mile that he was calculating in.
Okay.
So basically like just from a mistake of using the wrong kind of measurement, like they're both miles, but they meant different things. He thought that the Earth was about like 2/3 the size that it is.
Okay.
So he was kind of saying like, oh yeah, like in 3 weeks we'll be in China.
Yeah.
And
no problem.
No problem. Yeah, no problemo.
No problem.
So basically, he kind of, some of his math was just wrong. Like he did the math correctly, but he was using the wrong measurements. But what he did know was the existence of these trade winds. And some of this was kind of like hearsay and rumor from ship captains, pilots. But essentially, if you leave from the west coast of Europe and head a little bit like southwest, all of the prevailing trade winds will carry you west. And so he was able to make this like his initial journey in 3 weeks, pretty much 3.5 weeks from Europe to the Bahamas. And then what made it really profitable for him and then basically changed the world was that if you headed northeast from there, there was like a return wind heading east. So you can kind of picture he was doing a clockwise rotation from Europe down into like the Caribbean and then back up to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's in Portugal, and the king of Portugal, everyone is trying to find a trade route. A few other ship captains, or tons of ship captains are, lobbying to say, hey, so, they basically want funding from the king. A few people are successful, and that's where like the trade route of heading down the coast of Africa, getting to the southern tip, and then like making the actual journey all the way to China from Europe was possible. So as Columbus is trying to lobby, like, hey, send me to the west, send me to the west, other people are actually successful heading south, going around Africa, and then making it back too, which obviously doesn't count if you don't come back. So unfortunately for him, other people were kind of able to like beat him to the punch.
Yeah.
Like, no, we already have a route, so why am I going to fund another expedition that's unproven?
Yeah.
Also, the lobbying that he was doing, like, so he would come to court, present his proposal. The king would have a team of advisors look at it, like check his math, basically, and then advise the king on whether or not this was a good investment. But that process took years. So he would lobby, and it would be 5 years, and then the king would say, no, not going to do it.
Yeah.
So while he's lobbying the king in Portugal, in Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella, they're finally quashing the remaining Muslim communities left in Spain. It had been conquered in the centuries before, and now it was like Spain was retaking Spain, essentially. And Ferdinand and Isabella, they were kind of a power couple, bringing together a bunch of very powerful families. At this point, they're kind of like cementing their control as the king and queen of Spain. And while Columbus is waiting for the king of Portugal to give him the yes or no, he's also lobbying Ferdinand and Isabella. And the story kind of goes, it's a similar thing, like he has to wait 6 years, and then he gets rebuked, and then he's riding out of town on a donkey, and Ferdinand says, no, bring him back, and we'll let him go. I think that he had a closer relationship with Isabella than Ferdinand. Ferdinand kind of didn't like him personally, which comes in a little bit later. But in 1492...
Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Now, he'd been trying to get this going for like 10 years, pretty much, from inception to when he actually got the go-ahead. So it took him 10 years of lobbying to get this permission from somebody. And it happened to be Ferdinand and Isabella, who were also Catholic. So he's Catholic. He would end up becoming a lay Franciscan monk in his life. He was buried in the Franciscan robes. And when he was on land, he would wear the robes. That's wow.
But anyway, he gets this permission, and then within 10 weeks, so after 10 years, it takes him 10 weeks, and he's ready to go. So he takes off with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, about 90 guys total.
Oh, wow.
And in 3 weeks, he's discovering, he's the first European to discover these islands. There's like 400,000 different things that happen to this guy. So I'm going to kind of breeze through because the details you can get bogged down.
Yeah. So
basically, he shows up, and this is he sets foot on land in the Bahamas, and not entirely sure which island. There's a few different theories, but there were people there, and they were a Native American tribe called the Taino people. And at the time of first contact, there were hundreds of thousands of these people, and then in not too many years, there were almost none.
Wow.
It was pretty brutal. But they make this first contact, and they try to like strike up, this, hey, we can trade you stuff. Here's some glass beads, and here's some copper pots, and like just random European things that these Native American people would not have had. And then immediately they kind of get down to, we need the gold, the silver, and the pearls. And that's what we're here for. Oh, I should also say, I think about this deal as part of his negotiation for making these journeys, these voyages across the ocean, he negotiated for himself 10% of all the riches found. He would be the governor, the Spanish governor of every city in perpetuity, and then like that would pass down to his heirs. And then any new enterprise, like any new business that was set up in this new world, or any world that he found, basically, that was the initial negotiation, he could kind of get like an eighth of that business. Like he could buy in. Whoa. Like he had the option to kind of like, I'm in.
Yeah.
So you think about that, like the potential for him to make a ton of money was definitely there. Huge. So this first voyage is kind of a voyage of exploration more than anything else. He only brought 3 ships, he brought 90 guys, so it's not really like we're going to start a colony here. But he actually meets some people, the Taino people. They're friendly. The Santa Maria is sunk, and in like a storm, it's like driven up onto this reef, and then it's basically bounced up and down on this reef until it just shatters. The captain of the Pinta, once they found land, he kind of took off. He's going to find his own stuff. So he's left with the crew of 2 ships, and he only has the Nina. And
did the crew die on the?
I think maybe a couple guys, but everyone survived. So now they're kind of like, well, we need to head back, and this is around Christmas. So they salvage what they can off the Santa Maria, like all the wooden boards and everything. They build a junky fort with the help of the natives. Like it was probably native labor more so than the European guys already at this point. They named this little village or fort La Navidad. So it's the nativity. Mm-hmm. It was Christmas. And so then he sets sail. He's like, I'm going to head back to Europe. But we found land. We found what we're looking for. And he's also going to go home and sell it as there's gold in the rivers, and the people are just, there's tons of people. We could take slaves, and so he set sail on the Nina, happens to run into the Pinta. The 2 captains make up, and then they head home. So he leaves 39 guys in La Navidad. All right, so now at this point, he thinks he made it to Asia, which, an honest mistake at this point, I would say. Some people, even then, I think, knew that he hadn't gone far enough. But anyway, he went to his deathbed believing he had found China.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so even as like evidence kept mounting, he could not be deterred. So goes back to Spain, gives this whole long spiel about, and he actually brought a few of the Taino people home with him. The idea was he would have them learn Spanish so they could translate. So when he goes back, he would have translators. So as they explore all the other islands. So he gives this big glowing report about what he had found. So now that first voyage only took like 3 months. It was just a proof of concept, basically. Mm-hmm. He goes back, and then within, I think, 6 months, but the next year, 1493, he comes back, and then this time we're setting up like a trading post. We're setting up a colony.
Yeah.
So the King and Queen of Spain, they give him 17 ships and about 1,250 people, sailors, but also like farmers, and I think actually even some families. Families went as well. And this time they kind of show up in force, and this is where Columbus's like legacy that we can think of now of being a total psychopath starts kicking in. He kind of kidnaps 2,000 people.
Say what?
He sends like the 500 choicest back to Spain as a gift. And one of his mandates from Isabella was treat everyone really well.
Yeah.
And especially if you're also claiming these lands as Spain, then these people are Spanish citizens, and they can't be slaves. So he sends 500 people back to Spain as a gift because he's not finding a lot of gold.
Okay.
So he's kind of like, all right, well, I need to send something. He sends 500 people back, 200 of which die on the voyage.
Ooh.
And then Isabella, these 300 survivors show up, and she says, what?
What is
this? She sends them back.
No, thank you.
Yeah, she was not too happy.
Where's the gold?
They were definitely slaves, though. That was just. She was initially upset. These people were definitely sold at auction in coming years. All right, so he also establishes this like forced labor where there's a quota of gold. So he tells all of the native people, you need to bring me this much gold like every 3 months. And if you don't, I'm going to cut your hands off.
See, the one image that I still remember from the movie 1492 is an image of somebody getting their hand cut off and like separating it, and like the ligaments and shit like pulls apart.
Yeah.
And it was so disturbing. I think that's in like the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything else. I just know Gerard Depardieu was in it.
Yeah. So now the second voyage, he's like setting up a settlement. So he was there for 2.5 years. And because they came with like 1,200 guys, the Spanish sailors and colonists basically, they start intermarrying with the native women. And now that causes problems with the native tribes in general, because they were kind of thinking like, no, you can't stay. It was nice to meet you, but this is getting a little out of hand.
Yeah.
And that actually drove, rather than like live under this dominion, it eventually drove like hundreds of thousands, if not hundreds, like definitely thousands of the native Taino people to commit suicide rather than like live under Columbus's thumb. Yeah, and he really did not find a lot of gold, so this was not becoming very worthwhile. So he leaves his two brothers, Bartholomew and Diego, kind of to be in charge while he's gone. And then he kind of sails around the Caribbean a little bit, thinking, yep, this is definitely China.
Nailed it.
Yeah. So the third voyage, it's in 1498, I think. Yeah, 1498. He goes back, and basically now he's working down like the coast of Central America and probably to the northern coast of Brazil. He doesn't know it, but as he's going by, because they're trying to find like the Pacific. They don't know. They think it's like the Indian Ocean,
right?
You know, but they're trying to find like where's the end of this other landmass. So they start working their way down the coast, and I think that they're still convinced that it's India.
Yeah,
you know, but they're looking for what they think is the Indian Ocean. And actually, as they're doing this journey down the coast, they actually get to the coast of Panama, and I think they actually even spent a night, or they spent some time in this bay that is where the Panama Canal is now.
Mm-hmm.
But they're looking, and it's like a whole mountain range. So they see this, mountain range, and they think there's no way there's any sort of like water route through these mountains. Yeah. It couldn't possibly be true. And even though there were native people saying like, hey, on the other side of those mountains, there's a ton of water.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I don't believe you, basically.
Huh.
At this point, the Spanish crown, Ferdinand and Isabella, are getting all these reports that Columbus is like just not a good governor. And that seems to be like the common refrain on this guy, is that on the ocean, he was talented as a ship captain. He was really lucky in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like he definitely kind of a cat with 9 lives.
Mm-hmm.
Probably should have died a number of times, but
yeah,
he got pretty lucky. But he's also he was intelligent enough and a gifted enough captain that it kind of makes sense that this guy was able to do this stuff. But when it came, like as soon as his feet touched the ground, he was a psychopath. So Ferdinand and Isabella, they send this official while Columbus is kind of sailing around down Central America. They send this official to Santo Domingo, which is in the Dominican Republic now. And that's the oldest European city in North America.
Really?
Yeah. And it was basically where Columbus and his brothers set up. They founded that city. It was like the first Spanish settlement. So this official shows up, looks around, and says, not having it. And they end up arresting Columbus, and he's brought back in chains. And rather famously, he's brought back in these chains, but like the ship captain that's bringing him back says, as soon as we're out of sight of land, I'll take the shackles off. Like, it's just kind of for show for the people that were watching you get arrested. But now this is where he kind of becomes he wants to be a martyr about it. He says, no, I'm gonna leave them on. So he leaves these shackles on all the way back, and then because he's kind of a celebrity in Spain.
Yeah.
Where he is a celebrity, he's really famous. So when he shows up, all the people are like, no, you can't do that to Christopher Columbus.
And then Ferdinand and Isabella, they wanted him to kind of strip him of some power. So this is where his fortune kind of takes a hit. Like he's no longer the governor. They start renegotiating the deal a little bit. He's not going to get that 10% forever. He's not going to, he kind of screwed himself over just because he was absolutely out of his mind, killing people and enslaving them. But he's able to kind of talk his way out of it in court, and the more serious charges of just like complete dereliction of duty and, not doing his job, they drop all those charges. So he's able to make a fourth voyage, and this is in 1502. Again, he's traveling around in the islands. He is traveling south, for some reason turns around, and then his ships are like just beat to hell. He had 2 ships at this point with him. I think like in the third voyage, he had brought 6 ships, something like that. And then the third voyage, or the fourth voyage, he only had a couple of ships. So like the second one was like the big 17 ships, 1,200 people. And that was like, we're setting up this colony. And then the third one and the fourth voyage were kind of, if you get us some gold, we want actual treasure here. So the governor that replaced him at Santo Domingo was actually like a personal enemy of his.
Oh.
This guy hated him. And actually went so far as when they were sending like a bunch of gold back, they sent like 30 ships back. He put all of Columbus's personal gold on like the leakiest, crappiest ship, just assuming that like it's going to get taken out in this hurricane that they thought was coming.
Yeah.
And that ship actually ended up made it. So again, it was like Columbus got really lucky, but his wealth made it back to Spain as the wealth he had accumulated so far. But so he's sailing in these 2 ships down like the eastern coast of Central and South America. At this point, he's been like on the ocean for so long and staring at the sun.
I bet
his eyes are gone. Like his retinas are just burnt to hell. He's like limping. His health is really not great. So he's pretty weak.
Shambles.
Yeah. He's got this other ship, and the ships are at this point, they're like just trashed. And they didn't have a shipwright or like carpenters or any sort of way to fix these ships. I think every now and then you basically have to beach the ship, tip it over, scrape the barnacles and junk off the bottom. And then like they do that, pine tar to keep the like worms and to keep the ships from rotting underneath them. They couldn't do any of that. So they're like, by the time they start heading back, they're trashed. And in order to kind of save themselves, because they've been screwing over these native peoples, like all this whole time, I should say, they've been just screwing people over.
Yeah.
They basically need to like stay on the ships to stay safe. So what they do is they beach the 2 ships on like a coral reef or like a sandbar right next to each other, like touching, so that they have these 2 vessels that has water all around them that are kind of defensible. I'm going to jump ahead kind of quick here.
Okay.
But they have no way of getting food. All their this is a point where the sailors on these boats, they were said to, they would eat their ration at like their gruel at night, so they wouldn't have to watch all the maggots that they were eating moving around. Like all their food was just rotten. So they were like, I know I'm eating it, but if I see it, I'll throw up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. And this is after Columbus was convinced he had found the Garden of Eden, like probably in the coast of Brazil. He thought,
really?
Yeah, that's the Garden of Eden. So he's got something like 50 guys between the 2 ships, somewhere in that range. Not a lot of guys. And now they're just stuck. And again, super lucky. His like first mate or this really loyal crew member, I forget the guy's first name, was like Mendez was his last name. He takes a suit of armor, he goes onto the land, and he trades the suit of armor for one of the native people's dugout canoes. So then with this dugout canoe, he's going to try to get back. They're off the coast of Jamaica. So he's going to try to go like 500 miles back to the settlement and then just like beg for, we need a rescue. He gets turned around the first time, comes back, and then like goes again with a few more guys. He ends up getting back to like to Haiti,
So, Haiti is like the western part of that island, and the Dominican Republic is the eastern part. So the settlement, Santo Domingo, is on the Dominican side. That governor guy that hates Columbus happened to be like kind of exploring himself on the island, or setting up some settlement or trading outpost, or torturing native people on the Haitian side. So this guy shows up and says, "Hey, Columbus is in trouble." And the governor says, "Good." And doesn't,
so what?
And then doesn't go rescue him.
Yeah.
And doesn't let this guy go back with anyone. It's like, all right, well, problem solved. So Columbus is stuck out there for 1 year.
Whoa.
It's just basically shipwrecked, and they're trying to, they have no way of getting food. So they're just trading like whatever they can. They're completely relying on the native tribe that's on the shore there to feed them. But that's coming to an end.
Whoa. A year?
Yeah, he's out there for a year. So he has an accurate like mariner's almanac. And in it, he says, "Oh, we're having, this is after a year, there's going to be a lunar eclipse tonight." So he calls like the chief and says, "You need to give us enough dugout canoes and like native people to row them, or the great white god is going to turn the moon into blood," some BS. So this guy naturally goes like, "Cool story." No. And then that night, the moon is obscured, becomes, blood red. So then the next day, the guy shows up, and that's enough for like that native tribe to kind of go, "Hey, Spanish people, we want to trade with you to get these guys out of here." So eventually Columbus is rescued by like a Spanish ship. I think they tried to like have the native peoples row them back, but they were just like throwing them overboard. It was like horrible. It's like, "Oh, you tired? Get off." And then if these guys try to hang it back onto the boat, they would like cut their hands off.
Oh, jeez.
It's crazy. Yeah. So he goes back to Spain. This is now November 1504. Goes before the king and queen. He kind of says, "All right, I want my money." After all this, he gets paid out. He makes quite a bit of money. But then he dies in 1506.
Oh, wow.
So he only really got to enjoy it and he was wrecked. Like his body was wrecked.
Yeah. So he wasn't even 55.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and that's the thing. So all of his, what we call like the New World exploration, happened in 12 years. He's made four voyages in 12 years, responsible for hundreds of thousands of people dying. I mean, the biological warfare side of it, like the smallpox, all the diseases and that kind of stuff, probably, I mean, nothing was really going to stop that ever. Like as soon as there was contact. And this is something too, like if it wasn't him, it was going to be somebody.
Sure.
But even in his lifetime, there were people saying, "This guy's going a little bit too far." And this is like they knew that what he was doing was wrong. He had his critics. It wasn't like, so people say, "Oh yeah, it was he's a man of the times." I was like, well, all right. So was Hitler. Hitler was a man of his time. Like, he was alive when he was alive.
Totally.
So like, that's not really an excuse for like there was moral objection to his actions in the time. It's kind of a weak comparison, but to write him off as, everyone was like that then. Like, no, they weren't. Yeah, and there's a lot of really good like first person sources for him. His son traveled with him on the fourth voyage, so he brought his son along. His two brothers, his brother Bartholomew in particular, was regarded as actually like smarter than him, a better captain. He just isn't remembered as as widely as Columbus is.
I don't think I've ever heard of him.
Columbus was probably one of the first European explorers to come across tobacco and cocoa, and like never saw any value in that. He just wanted gold and silver and pearls. So he probably could have, if he just focused on those crops, probably would have been way wealthier than for the amount of gold that he found.
Yeah.
It was kind of nothing. That was the problem. He would show up, and then the native people would have like some gold earrings or something, and just like little nuggets of gold, not like elaborate anything. And it was just because the only gold they had was stuff you'd be walking along a stream and there'd be a little shiny bit of gold.
Yeah.
But that's it. There was no like mine or anything like that. Mm-hmm. They weren't mining it. They just thought it was pretty. It wasn't. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we have these gold mines and bars of gold and
stacking them up.
El Dorado, like this, this golden city. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything other little tidbits I picked out from this research. This sets off what is called the Columbian Exchange, so named after him. And like I said before, I mean, he wasn't technically the first person to make. He was kind of the first person to use the trade winds the way he did, but the actual like real work, especially the country we live in now, like he never set foot.
Yeah,
in any part of it is.
That's it. That's fascinating. Yeah, because that's kind of the picture that's painted is that he found this land.
Yeah. No, if anything, Columbus Day should be a Caribbean holiday. If you want the good old days of when everyone was killed for not working hard enough, Yeah, and he was definitely a not kind person.
Yeah, I think the sense that I gathered, even through not knowing much, was that he was kind of a dick.
Yeah. Yeah, and the amount of on his I think it was his fourth journey, when he was the crew he was sent along with, they were like teenagers. Because at this point he was not in favor. And actually some of the crews that he was sent with, they were kind of like minimum security prisoners. And the idea was that if you go and survive, and you can make a life for yourself if you go, you get amnesty from your crimes. So he wasn't really traveling with everyone that he was traveling with. They were soldiers of fortune, basically. Mm-hmm. So the amount of rape and pillage that was going on was severe, even for the time.
Yeah. Didn't he get gonorrhea and chlamydia and stuff?
They
said that they thought at the time that he had had gout quite severely and plagued with what was thought to be influenza, bleeding from the eyes, and prolonged attacks of gout. And then the suspected attacks increased in duration and severity, sometimes leaving Columbus bedridden for months at a time, and culminated in his death.
Gross.
Yeah.
That sounds about right for his lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we didn't celebrate Columbus Day until, I think, FDR, until the 40s.
Oh, really?
It's a recent, that's kind of a recent thing, and I think he's kind of a placeholder as the discoverer of the new world. But, as far as actually discovering anything that we would consider why Columbus Day is a day.
Right.
He didn't. So.
He didn't.
What else do we want to know about Columbus?
Problem is, for me, I don't really know the questions to ask in order to fill out this portrait. Yeah,
I think that he was a unique person. Mm-hmm. He was definitely, he was pretty ballsy. It's pretty, regardless of how sure you are, or how solid the math could have been, they still didn't know. They thought oh yeah, that's the other thing too. He, based on his calculations, he expected to hit China in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So in 3 weeks, he saw land.
There it is.
I told you.
I mean, imagine living in that world where we take our incredibly detailed maps totally for granted. We know pretty much all the topography of the world. And back then, they were figuring it out.
Yeah.
Just sailing around. Oh, here's something.
Yeah, his first voyage was just exploration. And then his third voyage was more, and kind of the fourth, was more exploration.
Yeah.
They were still figuring it all out. And then that really opened the floodgates, though. After that initial contact,
yeah.
That I think that's what's most remarkable with him. Not that it's certainly someone else was going to make it, and whether it was 1493 or 1593,
mm-hmm.
That's kind of neither here nor there for us. He just happened to be the one that made that first contact that there was no going back from.
Yeah.
That truly kind of changed the world.
in his own life, I mean, I think like he gets that credit of like, yep, that's kind of when the die was cast for everything that you and I have ever experienced in life. But he himself was kind of not nice.
Not a cool dude.
Not a real nice, cool guy.
Oh shit.
Yeah. What was your education about Christopher Columbus in school? Mine
so
was
basic.
So basic. It was like in 1492, he sailed the ocean blue.
I mean, that's
about
right there.
it.
Yeah.
And I think it was even he discovered America.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty basic. He sailed from Spain, came upon America, and then eventually Pilgrims, and then Thanksgiving. Boom. There it is.
Apple pie.
Yeah, corn.
Yeah. No, he was in Hispaniola, which was Haiti and the Dominican Republic now, and then also he spent a lot of time in Cuba, sometime in Jamaica. Set foot on Central America. Didn't set foot on South America though. He sailed by it. Huh. By that point, he was all banged up physically. I was like, I can't get off this boat.
It's all banged up.
He may have sent like his crew probably went out there, but another thing too, I actually didn't touch on was on more than one occasion. Like when he came back after the second voyage, those 39 guys that he had left, they were dead. And, like that first settlement that first like fort that he left,
they were dead.
Those guys did not make it. And, it's even in the moment they thought like, yeah, it looks like they were mistreating the native population to the point where
cut them up.
The native tribes, they just picked them off. They kind of knew they couldn't just charge them. So they would just like pick them off one at a time.
Yeah.
So when they got back, and it's only, it was not even a year when they got back, they like, the fort was burned, it was trashed. And then not too far away, they found somewhat recently decomposing bodies still just sitting there.
Ugh.
And then when he had like the two ships on the sandbar reef in Jamaica, and for a year, there was a mutiny. So like almost 50-50, like half the guys split off.
Yeah.
Like they were fighting amongst each other. And then like he was putting down mutinies and rebellions.
Yeah, being stranded for a year would be pretty intense.
Yeah. But even before that, I mean, just in general, as a governor, people were committing suicide rather than have him as a governor.
Oh, fuck this.
And just chopping people's hands off, just sending people back to Europe to be slaves. It just raping.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting raped.
Classic raper.
It was not, and it's the irony was like he was this devout Catholic.
Yeah.
But just a bloodthirsty maniac. Yeah, I don't know. Before doing this research, I kind of didn't care so much about Columbus Day. Like I didn't. I've never.
Oh, it just comes and goes.
I've never celebrated it.
It is a national holiday.
I think
post office is closed and whatnot.
I think that it's a stronger tradition in like Italian communities because he was Italian. Like the Knights of Columbus, like that kind of thing. So kind of like special interest groups. They're somewhat motivated to keep Columbus's image pretty clean.
Yeah,
but he was a genocidal maniac.
Well,
even like all the research I did, everyone's like, there's a ton of stuff I'm skipping right now.
Right.
Yeah. I do think if anyone's interested, there are quite a few really good books now in English. The Four Voyages seems like a pretty popular one.
Mm-hmm. Who is this all recorded by? This recorded history?
Himself, in his own writings. His brother Bartholomew, his son Diego was actually the governor of Hispaniola for some years after after Columbus died, his son was the governor. He was married twice actually. I skipped that part too. So his first wife was Portuguese. They had a son. She dies when the boy is like just a few years old, I think, and then probably from tuberculosis. And then he meets and marries like a 20-year-old Spanish woman. Anyway, but it kind of gave him like a foothold in Spain too. He had a Spanish wife. So that set up that trajectory.
Yeah, I totally thought he was Spanish.
And actually, I no, they didn't get married. The second was just his mistress, but he recognized their child as his own.
Oh.
You know, this was still the day where it was like, that's not my kid.
Yeah.
We're not married. So even though their son was, I think their son's name was Ferdinand, even though he was born out of wedlock, Columbus still claimed him as his own, and like, he's my heir. He can inherit stuff when I die.
Well, at least he did that.
Yeah.
He's not such a bad guy.
Yeah. He's an A+ dad.
All right.
He brought his youngest son on one of his rape and pillage vacations.
Yeah, this is how you do it, son.
Yeah. But his son came on the fourth voyage. He was fairly prolific as a writer, so he was a good. But it's through the lens of it's a son. So, like, his son writes that as a gift, the chief sends these 2 girls for raping, and like one was 8, one was 14.
8?
Yeah, like sends these girls.
What the fuck?
And then Columbus, according to his son, says, no, this is wrong, clothes them, adorns them in jewels, and like sends them back. And then the chief is mad. So maybe that happened, but it's also just as likely that that didn't happen. And his son is just trying to paint him in a better light.
Right.
It's kind of like, are you done recording? Okay, let's get those clothes off these girls.
Yeah.
It'd be just as likely. So,
yeah.
Pretty gross.
Pretty gross. Well, let me try to find the. So I just learned of this before we started recording that apparently there's a prophecy of Christopher Columbus in the Book of Mormon.
Mm-hmm. He definitely liked his prophecies.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did read the Bible like quite a bit. I mean, one of the titles for finding land, which they believe was China or India, he was granted like the title Admiral of the Oceans.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
And I looked and beheld a man among the Gentiles, who was separated from the seed of my brethren by the many water. And I beheld the Spirit of God, that he came down and wrought upon the man, and he went forth upon the many waters, even unto the seed of my brethren, who were in the promised land. 1 Nephi chapter 13, verse 12. So Nephi was having visions of a lot of things, one of them apparently being of Christopher Columbus, who visited his brethren at some point in the future. This would have been like 1,000 years after his day. Yeah, right.
I don't buy it.
Well, that ties into our next.
Yeah,
our next episode?
Should we do a button for this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode about Christopher Columbus.
Lovely dude.
What a guy.
I knew it.
Just a guy you'd like to have a beer with,
Totally.
Until next time, I'm Darren McCarthy.
I'm Dan Fury.
And this has been The Fundamentals.